Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is entitled Mom Tells Me She Lives in My House After Refusing to Leave My Property. EM equals entitled Mom. CD equals Chill Dad and LB equals Little Brat. So, I live on a river and it's a very popular place during the summer. I have some riverfront property and my house looks onto the river across the street. I have always had problems with people littering and destroying my review front property, so I try to make it look secluded. But this made it worse. Usually, I would just have to tell people that they are on private property and point at the several signs and they would leave. But some people are different. Well, today we had a different person. At around 12:45 I saw entitled Mom and Little Brat waltz right onto my property past the two no trespassing signs. At first, I thought they didn't see the signs and so I went down to tell them how it's private property. Me. Hey ma'am, could you please somewhere else to swim? EM what? No. We got here first. Me. That's not my problem. EM well then leave us alone. Me. But this is private property. EM yeah, I know, points at the sign. Me. So, could you leave? EM no, rolls eyes. Me. But even you said it's private property. At this point I was getting really frustrated because she even admits that it was private property. But what she said next made me pissed. EM yeah, I own this property, can't you see my house? Pointing at my house. Me. Lady that's my house now leave before I call the police. I take a step closer hoping she'll back off. I couldn't be more wrong. EM get away from my son you pedophile. I had no words for this, and I called the police. The police show up and start talking to us. PO equals police officer. PO so what is the problem sir? EM this man is trespassing and trying to molest my son. PO looks at me with that, sorry man, look and I reciprocate. Me. Look lady I have my keys on me so if you want to try to say that's your house, we can test it out now. EM that's stupid I don't need to prove anything. Me. Well I'll go show the police I live there. Me. Police officer and entitled Mom with Little Brat walk up to my house and I open the door with my key and unlock my car on the driveway. Entitled Mom tells the police officer I stole her keys, and he tells her to leave. Edit. I've been getting a lot of questions about Chill Dad. I forgot to mention his part but here it is. Entitled Mom called Chill Dad trying to get him to confirm to the police officer that they lived in my house. He told her to let it go and leave. He then picked them up. The next story is titled, You Have to Go by the Book. Well, so do I, Sparky. Back in the 90s, I was a reserve deputy sheriff in a large Texas county. We went through the same training as a regular police officer at the Sheriff's Academy, but it just took us longer to complete. We came out as full certified peace officers. Some of my classmates served their 16 hours per month unpaid duty on patrol or got their thrills kicking down doors with the warrant squad. I was a peaceful soul who sat at a desk in the county jail processing incoming prisoners with my gun in a locker at the entrance. This will come up later. I was driving one evening and entered an intersection with a short yellow light. I made it into the intersection on the yellow, but it didn't turn red until I was midway through the intersection. A city police officer decided to pull me over and started to yap at me about running a red light. I simply said that I entered the intersection at yellow, which is not illegal in Texas. He said, well you can tell it to the judge. I want to see your license and insurance. As I was getting my license, he must have seen a glint of metal in my wallet. I didn't go the way of the brother officer routine so I didn't make an issue of it. But as he asked, what's that, I flipped open my wallet and showed him my badge and sheriff's office ID. He said to me, oh, you're a cop, too. Bet you would feel silly if I gave you a ticket. To which I replied, you do what you gotta do. Which annoyed him. He then told me he had to go by the book. So, he took my driver's license and insurance back to his car, and I could tell he was yucking it up with his partner for about 15 minutes. He then told me I could go without a ticket but to watch my driving. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. A few weeks later, I am sitting at the intake desk at the county jail, which processes and houses city and county prisoners, and who, of all people, walks up with a clearly disheveled drunk. Yes, it was Officer Badass, OB. He proceeds to tell me that the guy has no ID and asks me to take him as a John Doe intake as a courtesy, even though the drunk was so coherent that he couldn't even give his name or date of birth. OB still hadn't recognized me, so I said, "Bet you would feel silly if you had to spend the night here with this one drunk." His eyes got wide, and he stammered an apology, after realizing who I was, saying that he was just breaking my balls and didn't mean anything about the traffic thing. I just shrugged my shoulders and told him that I had to, actually, go by the book, as well. The John Doe courtesy was at the booking officer's discretion, and I wasn't about to extend it. I told OB that there could be out-of-state warrants for him which would make him a county prisoner, or federal holds on him which was murky as to if the city or county was responsible for his processing, or just the current charge of drunk and disorderly which was a city matter. Now, yes, I handled all paperwork for any prisoner coming in, but without knowing his ID and wants or warrants, I didn't know what paperwork to fill out or to which floor of the jail to send him. In the John Doe scenario, we just took the prisoner, stuck them in a holding cell, figured it out, then dealt with changing the paperwork and dealt with any consequences if there was a big oopsie later. I told OB he would have to go to fingerprinting, get him processed to find his info, if possible. He may never have been arrested. Then when he found a positive ID to go to the warrant desk to have him run through the Texas Crime Information Computer, National Crime Information Computer, Regional Crime Information Computer, and the FBI and DIA databases. The shocked look on his face was worth the price of admission. He grabbed the supervising deputy lieutenant in charge of the shift who was walking by and wanted him to order me to take this John Doe, so he can get out of there. Now I had known Lieutenant Danby for years, and he was even the one who convinced me to be a reserve deputy in the first place. Request was denied. OB finally slinked back up about 4 hours later with a fingerprint card and an ID report along with a warrant check report, looking very, very humble indeed. I should have felt a slight hint of shame for doing that to OB, but there was certainly that exhilarating feeling of exacting revenge on a jerk. The next story is titled, "Piss on the Wall? No Shoes for You." So, many years ago, around 94 or so I think, I was working as the general manager of a national pizza chain in an upscale mall. Had a group of 3 or 4 dudes come in and order a whole pizza, so we made it and they proceeded to sit at a booth and eat. They were a little loud and obnoxious, but the restaurant was otherwise empty, so no big deal. After a few minutes, one of the dudes came up demanding a refund because there was a hair in the pizza. This was a group of black dudes, which would not normally be important, but in this case it was. See, the only 2 employees in the store were me and another guy. We are both very Caucasian and I had short brown hair and the other guy had long blonde hair. The hair in the pizza was short, black and curly. It was also just as obviously shoved under the cheese and not even melted in. I refused the refund by pointing all this out, and after some minor bitching and moaning, said dude went back to his friends who became even more loud and obnoxious and finally left. Because of this, I called the other pizza joint at the other end of the mall to warn them just in case these guys were still hungry and, in the mood, to try the scam out again. Once they were gone, I went back to the restroom just to check things out, because one of the dudes had gone back there and took just a little longer than would be expected. Sure enough, this asshole had pissed all over the toilet, sink and walls, which we would of course have to clean up. My employee then went over to clean up their table mess and came across a large bag with a box in it under the table. Turns out this contained a brand new pair of pretty high-dollar athletic shoes just purchased at the Athlete's Foot store across the hall. Because of finding the bag, he hadn't yet gotten around to actually cleaning the table as of yet. I have never been a fan of that type of shoe, but my long-haired employee definitely was. And as luck would have it, they were just a half size bigger than he wore anyway. Cue petty revenge. After like 15 minutes, the dudes apparently realized they no longer had the bag, so they returned to the store and went back to the seating area to search for the bag. Not finding it, they came to the front and asked if we had seen a bag back there. Nope. The next story is titled, "I cut my lawn in random directions because it makes my neighbor crazy." Neighbor is a retired 70-something former preacher or pastor or whatever. He's also a judgmental prick who, despite not living in a neighborhood with an HOA, makes weekly rounds through the neighborhood looking for any minor code violations. Things like flowers that are overhanging onto the sidewalk by an inch or 2, etc. He can report to the city to get the owners fined. He mows his lawn twice per day during the summer and has a bed of green that would make Hank Hill cream himself. I take pride in my yard, but it's 70% native plants and wildflowers with a small patch of grass in the front. I don't water the grass because pouring water on the ground seems stupid to me, but it, along with a healthy mix of other stuff, comes in pretty full and there aren't any bare spots anyway. I mow every 5 days, less if we're in a dry spell and it grows slower. Anyway, when I get out there, I cut all the grass, but with a focus toward leaving a path that is as baffling as possible. Sometimes I will attempt a checkerboard and then veer off into spirals, other times I will approach with an even more abstract eye. The grass doesn't seem to mind, and I enjoy the challenge of thinking of new ways to traverse the lawn. Today I saw my neighbor standing out front with his fuck-up grandson that got sent to live with him for some reason. He was complaining to him about something, throwing his hands up in the air, clearly very exasperated. Then he gestured toward my lawn and then made a little spiral gesture while contorting his face in disgust. I don't know exactly what he said, but I imagine he was lecturing him about how if he didn't get his life together, he'd end up like me, the neighbor with the weird lawn. Small victories, you know? The next story is titled, Taking Out the Trash. So, I worked for a while at a group home type thing for young adults who were struggling. Usually, it was an uneventful job that involved helping them learn life skills, such as cooking, cleaning, budgeting their money, etc. I worked overnights, so an uneventful job became even more uneventful. A common task when I was in on shift was taking out the garbage. The city this place was in would take 2 bags per house, and this facility was a semi-detached with the walls in the middle taken down to make one large house. So, thinking I'm doing my job, I take 4 bags to the curb. The worker who would come in to relieve me in the morning, let's call him B, absolutely loses it on me. Why did you only take 4 bags out? The bin at the side is overflowing. For context, this program is not funded well in the slightest. There was a rotting, dilapidated garbage bin at the side of the house that was indeed overflowing with garbage. About once a month the manager would buy extra garbage tags or do a dump run. I let him know they will only take 4 bags. B responds that, I'm the reason the bin at the side of the house is overflowing, and, next week I should put as many bags out as I can. Immediately I knew exactly what to do. Next week on garbage day I took all 37 garbage bags from the side of the house and arrayed them neatly for pickup. I get a knock at the door and open it to the waste removal dude looking concerned. He says, you know I can only take 4 of these, right? I said no problem. About an hour later B rolls in for his shift. He was perpetually about 5 minutes late for his shift, which was infuriating after working an overnight shift. He gets out of his car absolutely speechless as he sees 33 garbage bags neatly arrayed on the front lawn. There was so much garbage you couldn't even see the grass. I smile and toss him the keys to the house before getting in my car and taking off without a word. Edit. The bags were back in the bin when I returned that night. There are security cameras everywhere, so I had my first coffee of the night as I rewound the footage to watch B lugging all the bags back to the bin. The last story is titled, Sports Ball. So, a few weeks ago my family and I were at the Cubs vs Cardinals game at St. Louis. Near the end of the game, we moved down to the lower levels and leaned against a brick wall with everyone else. About 10 feet in front of the wall was railings, then more seats, and then the field. We moved here to get out easier once the game ended, and everyone else against the wall had the same idea. A group of 8 people in their early 20s went up to the railing. They had a friend with a hurt leg and one of those scooters. A staff member went to talk to them because they were blocking people. They didn't listen and the staff member left. A different staff member came up and asked them to move, but they insisted against it. Eventually my dad tried politely asking them to move as they were blocking us and others. The staff and my dad were all saying that the guy on the scooter was fine where he was, but they wanted the others to disperse. The main girl in a pink shirt, I'll call her PS, came over and stood directly in front of my younger sister and said, "There, I moved back." My dad asked her to not block his daughter. Then PS said, "I'm sorry, but how am I supposed to know who's with your group?" My dad told her that she shouldn't intentionally block any kid. After more back and forth, the staff came back. After a few minutes of PS and her friends arguing with the employees, they were finally forced to stand up against the wall. During that argument PS was saying things like, "Well, we want to be with our friend," and, "Well, we bought tickets and have better seats." I know, how dense can someone be? Everyone bought tickets, and if you have better seats, go back to them. Everyone was against the wall, and no one had their view blocked. Except their handicapped friend who was still by the railing with another of them. So that's the end? No. PS started crying and rambling. She said that they had better tickets like 6 more times. She continued, this family thought I was trying to split them up. Why can't people be nice? Earlier a woman was yelling at me because it was her daughter's first game. But it's my first game too, they don't know me or my life. We paid more than them and have better seats. After a few more minutes of this the Cubs lost. Aw man. And since they were Cardinals fans they were celebrating and acting like everything they had done was justified. One guy yelled, see? There you go. We won anyways. As my family and I were leaving the same guy was sticking out his middle finger at us and yelling, see y'all later, repeatedly. They were the most entitled people I had ever met but it made the game more entertaining for us. Thank you for listening.